Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another podcast episode. In this episode, we talk about career in QA automation, QA engineer, software engineering test, or software testing engineer. There are many names to go with it. My coworker Laksh Kapoor, he's back on the show. He talks about his journey from bachelor's to getting into QA automation field, an entire journey of like what was his interview like, what is the field, QA engineering field like, what is the scope of the field, what is the salary range, what are the technology and skills, and what's the future of this field. So I hope you enjoy the conversation, and if you do like the conversation, please don't forget to like and comment and let me know what you think. Comment and also let me know what other field would you like me to interview and podcast on. And also, if you enjoy everything, then don't forget to subscribe. Welcome back, Laksh. Thank you again for joining and sharing your journey, your experience with my audience. Super grateful for your time and sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your show again.
Yeah, and again, do you want to do a quick short intro for the people who might have not watched the first video which we shot? What do you do right now, and what did you do in the United States?
Yeah, so I work as a QA engineer. That's my actual title at EXL Healthcare, and I basically write code to test software. Is the easiest way to explain it. And I did my bachelor's in computer information systems from California State University, Chico, and I'm glad I did it because I like what I do right now.
Yeah, no, awesome, and we both work together, which is I love working with you.
Yeah.
Let's just dive right into your role in QA automation. What exactly it is, and what do you do?
So my main responsibility is writing. The easiest way to explain it is writing code to test the software that we build to make sure it works, as the user wants it or desires it to be, and that we're not shipping the software with, bugs or incomplete features, because that could cause, a lot of potentially cause loss of money and time, because if client's not able to work, then that's a loss of money and time for them. So another major part is making sure testing is done quickly and effectively, so that we cover everything that we want to, but also do it quick, because it's different than manual testing, where you get you make a test case, or you follow it and then manually reproduce thing. That might take you 2 hours to do it. But with automated tests, when we have automated it, that you could have the same result in 30 seconds to 45 seconds, or sometimes even quicker. So businesses have kind of identified this opportunity where we can reduce the human element from testing, and have computers do it because they're faster.
Right.
But at the same time, not completely eliminate the human element, because we do still need people to write these tests or design how these tests should work.
Right. Yeah. And just going more into it, for people who probably don't know anything about this field, so software, you are not manually clicking it. So for example, Facebook login page,
Right.
If you had to do automation on that, and it would be not like, if manual tester has to test that, you probably will be logging it with the wrong email ID, wrong password, and try to see if it's working or not, and it should not let you in. But the same thing, you would code that thing and then make computer write that thing, right?
Yeah, so basically that's the idea, and there are different types of tests. So the one you describe, like a functional end-to-end test, where you can log in and do something and verify the thing at the end, and you follow the whole scenario that a user follows. So yeah, we would write code. Like for example, a simple test case, like you said, you log in, you enter your username, you enter your password, click the login button, and then when the next page loads, you should see, hey, welcome Laksh, or whatever user you sign in as. So a test with that, we could automate it to launch the browser, whether it be in Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, and you identify the fields, by the unique ID that they have coded in the HTML, and then send a command to the browser through a middleman called a web driver or a driver. And that driver basically drives the browser. It tells it, okay, the script wants you to enter my Lakshya's email in there, Lakshya's password. Click the login button. When the page loads, go to this portion of the page. You localize where you want to look for welcome Laksh, and then make sure the text in that should say welcome Lakshya or whatever you want to
Yeah.
verify that is in there. So
Yeah.
that's the basic idea of automated testing. That
Right. That's super helpful, and I think that will help people understand what really is. And I know it's not just QA automation or QA engineer. It's called many different names. What are some of the names people go for QA automation engineers?
Yeah, so the most common one you might have heard is a QA engineer, and there's a QA automation engineer, there's test automation engineer, and then there's also a little slightly fancier but a little bit more technical term, software development engineer in test. So there are many ways to call it, and the roles slightly differ to QA engineer, test automation engineer could slightly differ to, but test automation engineer is what the industry usually uses is you're writing automated tests to test the software. So it's a little bit more clear than QA engineer because you could do different things as a QA engineer, and same with software development engineer and test. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and so now that we have understanding of what your role is, what kind of skill set do we require for this role?
So to be a test automation engineer, basic programming language experience or basic programming experience, just to understand how the syntax works and things like that. That helps you understand the documentation for things easily. Another one is just good problem solving skills or debugging skills to try to understand if something's failing to work, why is that, how can I fix it, or understand how I can fix it at least. So that's good. And then if you can acquire manual testing skills before that, especially if you're new to a company, I always recommend, or I know our company has a policy that you will spend 3 to 6 months going through manual test cases just to understand the software and how the testing workflow goes, and that helps you write automated tests a lot better because now you already know testing, programming, you just need to combine them.
Right. Yeah. And how do someone build that skill set? So let's say someone is doing their bachelor's or master's and they want to get into this role. How do they start building their skill set? Like, what are the things they need to learn for these things? You already talked about what are the skill set they need to have, but how do they start moving tools or resources for that?
I feel like when you're in college, at least in my experience, we had very limited focus or awareness. Not awareness. We had very limited exposure to testing. We had some what's called unit tests. So for example, if you're in a programming class, the professor will give you, hey, these are unit tests, meaning these things, enter a 1 + 1 and expect 2 out. Now you need to write code that will make this sum function accept 1 and 1 and give me 2 out. So those things are called unit tests. So that was the kind of limit of my exposure to testing. I know at Chico State there are actually quality assurance. There's one class for quality assurance and testing now. So if your university or college or even a local institute offers that, I know there's a lot of local institutes in India that offer training for software testing. So if you can get if you have access to that, definitely take that. It definitely helps. Besides that, try to get an internship in this field. That's the best way because you already have someone developing software. The process is laid out. It's a really good experience, and which is what helped me understand what quality assurance is and learn from people who have been doing this for a while. I think that would be the best way to get started.
Right, and maybe even some online classes if there is Udemy, Coursera, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of online courses. If you can get access to them. Plural site is another good website that teaches you. Sometimes they even give you a test software that you can download. It could be a website or a tool, and then they tell you how to write code and how to test it as you follow the video.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then now moving towards, because just coming from India, we focus a lot on salaries, and that there might be some myth that software testing doesn't make as much money as software developers. But I wanted to know, what kind of salary range do people have when they get as a software automation testing role?
Yeah, I think it's not as bad as people make it seem. At least not in California, because we have Bay Area, and for example in Chico, I think the starting range is 60, and then you can go up to 80 depending on experience. If you're a manager, maybe more, or a technical lead, um, maybe more. But sad. But I know in San Francisco, I think the average is 110 is where you get started, and I think for software developers, junior is 120.
Right.
It could numbers could be here and there,
Right,
but that's
yeah.
around to give you the idea. But also, that San Francisco is more expensive, so it kind of balances out. So that's the range. Plus, also depends what you do in quality assurance. It's a quality analyst, then QA
Yeah.
engineer. Then if you get more like test automation engineer, then you get like software developer engineer and test. So those positions that we talked about earlier definitely kind of define what your salary range might be, because they try to match industry
Right.
standard.
Right.
Yeah.
But anywhere from $60,000 to
Yeah.
$80,000, and then again, it's very specific to locations
Right.
too. So yeah, and being an international student, we also need to take care of visas. Is that like, does automation has to do anything? Like, does it come under our H-1B? Can you get H-1B on this?
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes under the the STEM field or the STEM career. So you can definitely get, because I was on H1B and for a while, and then so it's definitely possible. It's just a matter of finding the company that sponsors it, because I know it's expensive.
Right.
On average, for a company, it costs about $5,000, I think, just for the application process
Right.
and getting a lawyer. So not everybody wants to spend on it. So if you're highly skilled, or the company has enough funding and budget for that, they'll definitely
Right.
sponsor you.
Yeah. So the role has nothing to do with sponsoring your H-1B. Like, mainly if you are in this field and company can afford, then they definitely, it's like same as software developer.
Yeah, like if you're a QA analyst or test automation engineer, I don't think that matters, as long
Right.
as you're doing something technical and the company can afford it and is willing to do it. I think it should be possible.
Right. Okay. So you did talk about internship or getting an internship to build that skills. Did you have any internship for this specific?
Yeah, so I joined EXL in 2014 as an intern, and that was about a year before I graduated, and it really helped me understand how software testing works beyond unit tests that we learned in college about. So it was a really neat experience, and especially I'm a visual learner, so it helped me understand the flow of the software by actually going through it, learning from people who have done it, and then writing code to automate it.
Nice.
So I think it was a good learning
Yeah.
experience.
So how did you get that internship? Like, what was your interview like?
So it's funny. So before I actually, I let me go back. So I went to the career fair at Chico State, and basically went to any company that looked remotely familiar, or asked, hey, do you hire software developers? Because that's all we knew, learning from coming from that field. And a few of them said, yeah. They took my resumes, and then I went to the EXL had a booth at the career fair at Chico State. So I went over there and handed them my resume. Hey, here's my resume. I'm interested in a software developer position. And they said, okay. And then we also have a QA, internship position open. Would you like to apply? And I'm like, QA? What's that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sure. So they explained to me, this is what we do, things like that. And I applied for it. And so that was the start of my
That's how you got into
the process.
Yeah, and that's very interesting, because a lot of people think that career fair doesn't work, or you will not get anything out of career fair, so people don't attend it. But I focus on that a lot, that you need to go to every career fair, show your face to managers, because they are going to be there. So would you agree to that?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely knowing someone builds that little bit of a trust, more than just seeing an application come in, in the email, or your whatever system you use
Right.
for tracking
Through
candidates.
just LinkedIn or resume. Yeah.
Because I think it's like I could talk to you on the phone for a year and we'll just maybe be friends. But if I actually come and spend time with you, get to know you, we'll maybe become better friends, right? So
Right.
it's the same idea. When you talk to a manager or a HR person, they know that you're not an awkward person. They know that it may take you time to learn this job, even if you don't have all the skills. But knowing that you're a decent person, and the way you present yourself, they might be more likely to take a risk and hire you or give you a chance than just reading your resume and your name.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good that you're validating what I say
Yeah.
in my videos. Yeah.
And another thing I'll just mention is, especially some of us from India have challenging names to pronounce. So I have Laksh, which is Lakshya, which spelling and the pronunciation doesn't match. So a lot of times, if you do go to career fair and if you do have problems with people pronouncing your name, you can kind of help them understand how to pronounce your name, and that kind of builds a connection, starts a conversation that next time they see, they might not remember it, but it'll be a funny memory that, this guy did tell me how to pronounce his name. It's something like this, but tell me again. So there's that already connection you made when you met them.
Yeah.
So just things like that, help you
totally
improve your chances.
Yeah. And so what was your interview like for this position?
So I had the first interview was same day, 3 different interviews. The first interview was with the whole quality assurance, all the managers. There's also the test automation was a separate department than it is now as one.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a manager for that. There was also release engineering. So all 3 of them came to interview the candidates to see maybe they can figure out where each candidate fits or which one they want to join. So I went through that interview and decided on test automation engineer because they use Ruby, and which is what I'm comfortable with. And then my second interview was with just the release manager and the test automation manager. They both interviewed me. And I think that after that I was over email or over the phone, I think the recruiter called me and told me that, hey, we want to offer you the internship.
Interesting. And what kind of questions did they ask? Do you remember any?
I think I had to do 1 or 2 technical tests on the paper.
Oh, okay.
Some of the questions were definitely something like assembly language. I have never, but I think they just the point of these tests is not to see if you can answer everything, but how you approach problems.
Right.
Because I feel like software development and any kind of technical field is all about problem solving, how you approach it. You may not be able to solve 100%,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can put in an effort to understand it and figure something out, I think that's going to be majority of our careers, figuring out problems. So that was that. One question that was, I think, memorable was that I was asked to draw a smiley face on a paper. So I draw one, and then they're like, draw another smiley face. So I draw another one, and he's like, draw another smiley face. I'm like, the same one or a different one? And he's like, okay, you passed the test. So they basically wanted to see if I just followed directions one after one, or do I stop and say, what's the reason behind it? So the question that I asked is, same one or a different one?
Yeah.
That was one test. So there might be some tests like that where, like I said, they don't want you to solve. They want you to solve the problem, but it's more about, if I'm working with you to solve a problem, how will you respond to that problem?
Yeah, they want to analyze your methods to solve the problem, approach the problem, and also mainly not just code. Like, code can be learned or syntax can be learned during the time or during the job. Okay, and so I know that you hire people, or you kind of do hiring also now. So what kind of things you look for people when you see a resume? So just like a quick resume tips.
I think the first thing is how easy it is to read. You can have a lot of data on there, but it should be relevant. So if you tailor your resume to the positions we have applied, that makes it a lot easier for me to visually see and read through. Okay, we need whatever X programming language, X tools, do they have that or not, and then make my decision based on that. So that's one of the things is try to be as concise as possible and tailor your resume to the position. Don't add everything that you've ever done. Be more like add stuff that's specific to.
And also what's your thought on 1-page resume versus 2 pages, 3 pages? Also, what are your thoughts on? Let's answer that one first. I'm curious to see what you think.
I've heard usually if you're starting out, as the first 1-page resume is best, because I can't imagine, it'd be really rare if someone has a lot of development or testing experience before they even get their first full-time job. So, if you only have 1 or 2 small jobs, like working at a Pizza Hut or, doing something irrelevant to the field you're applying to, it's good to mention that, but try to keep a 1-page, just to kind of make it known that you're entry level and, only include relevant stuff.
Right.
Yeah. If you have more experience, if you have had full first-time job, you can go to two-page resume, which I finally did because I was stuck on a one-page resume. And now that I have 5 years of experience with EXL, my resume is finally two pages now. So in that, you can describe your role, but also describe your achievements and stuff that you have at that role. So that two-page. Anything more than that is definitely only have relevant stuff. If I have 4 or 5 different positions in the last 10 years that are relevant to this job, definitely put them down. So definitely, don't try to make bigger resume doesn't mean better chances of a job.
Right.
More relevant information could equate to getting a better.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on having one resume for all the jobs, or having different resumes for different jobs?
You could have a basic, like a generic template with the basic information about your technical skills, but it definitely helps to tailor your job, especially if you're switching careers. So if you're a tester wants to go to a developer, try to show your development side of the skills, whether you built the framework or how you approach solving problems, than just saying I automate test cases. Because there are definitely different requirements for it. Mm-hmm. Similarly, one test automation position could require something, but the other one could require something else. So try to show how do you fit into that role rather than sending the same resume out. So it definitely increases your chances if you tailor your resume. But again, it's more work. But on the other side, again, you could increase your chances.
Right. Yeah. And I wanna talk about networking, like how important networking, not computer networking, but like networking and socializing with people. How important is that in terms of getting job in United States?
I think currently it's one of the biggest factors that affects people's employment or chances of employment at a company is knowing someone. You might not be a perfect fit technically, but if a person likes you and know that I would enjoy working with this person and I know they can learn, I think your chances of employment are a lot higher. So I think, again, going to career fairs is a perfect way for networking. Another way is having a good connection with your professors, because a lot of time professors get contacted. Hey, we're looking for 5 people. Give us your 5, top or most likable people, skilled people. So if you have a good connection, your professor might recommend or refer you to that position.
Yeah.
So I think networking definitely helps.
Yeah, and even networking with your seniors and other friends, and keeping them that relationship that if they have some opening in their positions or in their companies, can also help you get into the company.
Right. There's also meetup groups where companies organize, or people from different companies go do for, like, there's one for Selenium in San Francisco that I have been to one, and there's people from all over the Bay Area coming there. So if you make connections over there, and if you want to switch a job tomorrow, you can definitely contact them, or at least be in touch with them for things like that. So that also helps them.
Yeah, and what like that just kind of touched on the the next question which I wanted to ask was importance of being involved on campus, like participating in career fair is one, but that's more related to career, but even just general organizations and stuff like that.
Yes, from a student life experience, I think it helps a lot develop your personality and your social skills, because these days, no matter how skilled you are, if you don't have social skills, people might not like you or might not hire you, because these days, there are people who are working remotely, people who are, working in the office. So having that knowing how to communicate definitely helps that, and joining organizations like these definitely boosts your communication skills and interpersonal skills. So if you have time besides classes, or try to make time to join these clubs, because they definitely organize events, and people from different backgrounds and cultures come to these, and so it's good personality building.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then just moving on to the kind of last end of the interview, where interview tips for people who are wanting to apply for QA automation or test engineer roles, like what kind of things you look for when you are interviewing a candidate?
I think one of the biggest is problem solving skills. Like I said, I think that's majority of the time will be spent on solving different problems. So look for problem solving skills, or willingness to learn new things, and that definitely we can ask questions over the phone to figure that out. If they're really set in their way that no, I only want to do this, versus am I willing to explore other opportunities. Because at any job you're not gonna you could be doing one thing for 20 years, 10 years, whatever, but it could get boring. But most likely you'll be asked to work on different things, so you will have to be flexible and have to learn different things.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm glad for all the things you answered and shared your journey. What's the one tip you would give for students who wants to pursue this career, or in general who are pursuing their bachelor's and master's?
I think if you know that you want to be into quality assurance or test automation or writing some sort of tests for as a career, definitely look at job openings in the area you want to go to, San Francisco, Seattle, wherever, and see what people are mostly hiring for. There's some I forgot the name of it. Maybe you can share it in your video description. But there's a website that you can enter a technology like React, JS, or JavaScript, and it tells you on a world map where companies are hiring for that, and it's like a bubble,
Oh wow,
that tells
that's
you
cool.
however big the bubble is, more jobs. So based on that, then if you enter keywords or even in Google, you'll see there are more jobs for testing using JavaScript than there with Python, for example. So you want to know that, okay, let's focus on JavaScript because that increases my chances of employment. So do some research beforehand so you can develop your skills over time.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you again for your time and sharing your journey. Really appreciate, super grateful for your time. And like, we end the video. Do you know my ending?
Yeah.
Do you want to end my video?
Yeah. So like Yudi says every time, keep smiling, keep hustling.
Thanks.
Yeah.